Gemma Rollason, welcome to the virtual stage. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you. Hello.
I hope you're doing well.
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, very good, thank you. It's a
Excellent.
long day and we're cracking on with such amazing topics. So really glad to have you here with us.
Thank you. You too.
We're going to be talking about data analytics and insights from connected packaging, which I think is a really, really key topic when we start to think about connected packaging. It's obviously a great way to be able to interact with consumers. We've talked about the decision making that can be done from connected packaging, and I think it's important for us to explore how connected packaging really does generate such invaluable data and gives us the ability to be able to think about different strategies, different analytics of consumer data that brands don't even have. But before we get into that, Gemma, I need to know something exciting, interesting about you that not many people know.
Oh, I was thinking long and hard about this, and it's a bit of a blast from the past, but not many people nowadays might know that I'm going to take that video. So when
Fantastic.
yeah,
Fantastic. We definitely all wish we'd been in that Take That video.
indeed, yes, it was quite exciting when I was 16, 17.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we've heard about that. Let's now talk about connected packaging. And
Yeah.
connected packaging has really kind of come into its own, I would say, in the last couple of years. And one of the things I think that sometimes gets forgotten a lot when we talk about connected packaging is the ability to be able to gather data, provide insights into consumers, into many things. Talk to me about that. Have you got any examples that you might want to talk about or mention, or even anything that you've got in terms of to talk about that kind of element, which is data?
Yeah, so I mean, with the beauty of connected packaging is there's so much scope for driving actions and behaviours, as like the primary goal and what the campaign's all about, but then gathering all sorts of data that can be so useful for brands to gather learnings, like you say, on both, their products and also consumer behaviours. So one example is that what we can do at PZ is to encourage people to choose a product or a brand off the shelf with, say, like an on-pack entry into a competition, and then when the product's purchased, and then as part of that entry into that competition, they'll be asked a marketing question around sort of how long do you think you're going to have this particular piece of packaging for? Because obviously, depending on what it is, it could be a day, a week, or a month, etc. And so then once that time is approaching, that consumer will be sent a reminder, which obviously they've agreed to have, to remember to scan the QR code on the product when they're disposing of it, so that then they can get details on the way it needs to be recycled, with a chance to win a reward for doing so correctly. And that reward could be, a discount on the next purchase or a sample of a different product within that brand's range. So already with just the campaign sort of itself, the brand's doing lots of things. It's encouraging purchase and rewarding correct recycling behaviours, and then encouraging repeat purchase by communicating with new and existing sort of customers at the exact point that they'll need to make a replacement decision. So to create that full circle. So that's already hitting loads of different valuable touch points. But, then the data behind that QR code can reveal a whole range of additional information on what happens to their product once it leaves the store, how long any given product type has a shelf life at home, if there are any types of products or packaging that regularly aren't being correctly disposed of, and if there are things like regional, national, or even global variations in behaviours. So there's tons of data that can make a huge difference to marketing decisions for brands, even beyond what they set out to achieve.
You mentioned actually quite an interesting point there about a reminder. I know we've talked about it before, but for the audience who haven't heard about it, what about the Nestle example we talked about before with the reminders?
Yeah. Well, that's a great example of a QR code sort of being very, very useful, as well as sort of the branding elements. So with the Nestle example, there's with the QR code, people could scan that QR code and get all of the sort of nutritional information, which is obviously really, really key for baby formula and things like that. But it also really cleverly allows them to set feeding reminders, and then alerted them for when it was time to make a repurchase. So, really genuinely engaging and useful for real life sort of, behaviours, but also, of course, it's creating amazing brand awareness and loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely. What about these kind of data points then? So we keep saying, oh, there's so much data, so much rich data. What type of data can be collected from connected packaging?
Well, I mean, all types, and that's what's really important for brands to really think about is what are they looking to find out about a consumer, and as I say, or even about their own product. You know, when that campaign is sort of happening, or before it happens, because there's, you know, tons of behaviour about consumer behaviour, tons of sort of data rather about consumer behaviours that can be found. Some of the examples we've just mentioned, but it's not really useful for brands just to have a ton of data thrown at them. You know, to turn that data into useful information is what's really key for brands. And so it's sort of like fielding out those interesting bits that are going to be useful for that brand. So I mean, the data behind the QR code, as I say, can reveal a whole host of information about, you know, locations, behaviors, you know, everything, anything you want really. It's just a case of being able to organize it to make it useful, I think.
Yeah, because I think what you're saying there is if you ask somebody a question, you know, how often do you consume this product? Or when do you consume this product? Or do you prefer this flavour versus that flavour? All
Yeah,
of that information can be collated, all of that can be collected
yeah.
and then harvested, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's what do you do with that data? So that gives people, you know, really great sort of information on what they would do, or ideas they maybe hadn't thought of about what their next steps would be for targeting consumers and marketing and sequential messaging and, you know, everything around that to make it a really clever and engaging marketing piece.
And one of the things I didn't really know when I started working in connected packaging was that actually retailers who have a lot of information, obviously, about consumers,
Hmm.
that information is not normally available, right? So they don't, brands in FMCG retailers, they don't actually have much data, right?
Well, exactly. And that's where QR codes really come into their own, because there is that whole mine of data that now can be sort of gathered, which you couldn't get with someone just buying a product off the shelf and then that's it really. Once they've left the shop, then you know that's kind of lost information. But with the QR codes, yes, all of that information can be sort of tracked, and it just gives a whole new world of information and you know, data, as I say, that people just couldn't get before. So it's really important for brands to think, you know, this is like a relatively new type of, you know, marketing and technology, but you know, let's think outside of the box and not just necessarily go, well, what we've always done, which is often easy to do with budget and time constraints and all of the other things, but it really is hugely valuable for brands and understanding their consumers.
And first party data as well, because if you're asking someone to register to win a prize, then I guess you get things like their email address, male, female,
Yeah,
age.
exactly, but it's all locked in as well, so you know there's not really a need to worry about sort of data protection. I mean, obviously GDPR has been around for some time now, so all of that information will be sort of voluntarily given by a consumer. But yes, absolutely, really, they're basically saying please market to us because they're giving that information to that brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, the reason why maybe the data part gets forgotten a lot is because it is what you said before, the kind of application of that data. What do I do with it anyway? Have you got any good examples of brands using the data?
Um, I mean, Coca-Cola is a really good example. Probably people can remember the Share a Coke campaign, where you know you go in a shop and gift bottles and cans of Coke to you know people when they found that physical bottle or can on the shelf with their friend or family's name on it. But then what was really great is that they made that really go viral with the Share a Coke messaging, which really took off and made the campaign go viral, and allowed, you know, Coke, obviously it's already a very well-known popular brand, but really allowed them to sort of market in a really clever way, you know, to millions and millions of people whilst engaging them in a fun campaign.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the campaigns that kind of sticks in my mind when we start thinking about that application of data as well is one from a vegan milk brand. Um, in fact, I've just even talked about it now. They're now marketed as a vegan, vegetable-based milk, plant-based milk. But actually, how they were marketing themselves before was lactose-free. And when we did the connected packaging campaign, we simply asked the question before they were entered into the draw, are you lactose intolerant? They believed that this was something that lactose intolerant people drank. Well,
Yeah.
70% of the people after doing the connected packaging campaign, actually they realized they weren't lactose intolerant at all. So there's a whole positioning
Yeah.
piece that can change there.
Yeah, exactly. It stops people making assumptions, and just obviously you need to ask those right questions. But yeah, with the information that you can gain, like, can change the whole trajectory of a brand's approach.
Yeah. All right. So tell us a little bit about Peasy. I'm just going to share a slide here to help you with your explanation. But tell us a little bit about Peasy.
So yeah, we are a tool for ongoing positive behaviour change around everything to do with sustainability. So, you know, recycling, return to store, obviously littering as well. But what we're really focusing on in terms of connected packaging is two things. One of which I sort of just explained regarding the on-pack, encouraging purchase, and then recycling, and all of that sort of education piece with that. But then, of course, there are some brands where that's not necessarily relevant for, and of course, there are sometimes the limitations with on-pack QR codes with maybe the size of the packaging or how long it will take it to get onto the shelves. So what we also have is a really clever way of getting that QR technology off the packaging and onto the bins itself, which is called smart segregation. And what that does is it gets the right piece of like recycling or litter into the right bin from the very point that a consumer is disposing of it. So whether that be fast food restaurants, universities, stadiums, hotels, you know, anywhere that has that waste separation need, it's fantastic because it means that's done at the very get-go and rewarding people there with spot prizes or entry into a prize draw or whatever it might be. So there's loads of ways that is a benefit to a brand, obviously, or a company. It's obviously sort of eliminating the need to do that waste separation and for it to be sent to landfill if it's not done correctly. Keep your areas clean and tidy and all of that kind of thing. But also it's fantastic for, you know, consumer brand perception and loyalty, and also being showing that they're pioneering a new tech. So, you know, it's a real win-win for everyone, which is really what we focus on, is sort of the carrot, not the stick approach to get people's behaviours to be ongoing, in, you know, doing the right thing.
Absolutely, and being able to track that. I think there's some really interesting data points then as well.
Yeah.
That
Well,
can be.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but yes, I was going to be actually bringing AI technology into that as well. So that even further creates the sort of data pools. So not only, for example, will we be able to tell that somebody's correctly disposed of an aluminium can in the right bin, but we can tell what brand that can is, you know, all the percentages of sort of different materials within that can. We can already tell, say, with things like when the bin's full and it needs emptying, so different areas within different, you know, buildings where there's points that need to be improved. So again, the data and the learnings go far beyond just putting the right thing in the right bin, even though that's obviously of key importance as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. We've got a data analytics and insights poll that's up that people are answering, which is answering the question: which type of data insights from connected packaging do you believe would be the most valuable for businesses? The answer here is that 45% believe consumer behavior patterns. So, you know, when do you consume? How often do you consume? Those types of things. Next up is product usage data. Of course, how people consume and how they actually use it. And supply chain tracking and first party data is actually 10%.
Yeah.
What do you think about those answers there?
It's good that there's a sort of that people are voting for all of those because they are all of importance. I mean, again, it really does depend on who's answering the poll, because obviously different things are going to be important for different reasons. And so that's where the beauty of all of that data comes from, because whatever is most important to a given company or brand, then they can mine that information, you know, as a priority. So yeah, I think they're all very important, but that's that beauty of it, where there isn't a one size fits all for everyone, where you're just forcing information on a brand that they may not be interested in. So all of those can be scaled up and down, which is really, really great.
Yeah, totally. And if we just go back to the example that you were showing us, the data that were available, just talk us through that again. So the waste types, and you said that's using AI. Tell us again how that works.
Well, so the QR code is the technology behind the smart segregation piece. So it's a very simple way of doing something with a lot of data behind it, but it's the QR code will go onto the bin, and that will be connected to the person. When they scan the QR code, they'll be able to see exactly what that bin is sort of meant for. There's no need for an app download, so it's really a way of sort of people on the go sort of just quickly scanning it, and it will say this bin is for recycling, this bin's for, you know, glass bottles, whatever it may be. So we can do it for any waste type. And then the gamification element that comes in is that somebody will then take a picture of them putting that right piece of, you know, disposed of stuff into that bin, and then they will get a reward. So as I say, that could be a spot prize from that brand, or we could enter into our prize draw. Again, you can be really nimble with the way that that's presented. So that's what the call to action is to get people to know what goes in what bin and do that. But then, yeah, the data behind it will show sort of, you know, the user numbers, how many people are using that particular bin or in that particular area, you know, of a university campus or whatever it may be. And as I say, the AI will be able to give really detailed information on the actual product itself, not just the material type. So there's a real deep dive into not just what's going in the bin, but, you know, not like the people using it. And also, if people are still putting stuff into the wrong bin, you know, what needs to be improved, and things like hotels, we can tell if cleanup staff, if they're still doing sort of actions that aren't correct, then that's a great training tool to show people what they should be doing, or a way of rewarding even further. So it goes far beyond, as I say, in inverted commas, just putting the right stuff in the right bin, because that is what the purpose of it is primarily. But then, yeah, all of that other data behind it can, you know, give a huge amount of information to brands.
Well, yeah, I can imagine even things like engagement time. If people are spending a lot of time on any particular area versus another area, all of those types of things as well. Let's just go through the customer experience. I know you talked us through it, but there's a really nice slide here where you can kind of visualize this a little bit more.
Yeah, so this is based around the on-pack QR code, which I was talking about, where you're encouraging customers to pick either your product or the particular range within your product, you know, obviously with that that reward on purchase. And then sort of to go through the sort of flow of it, someone will then at their leisure enter that competition, and then they'll get further comms from the brand again with their sort of say that they're happy with that. So that builds up a relationship with the brand and the consumer, sort of all the way through to there. And then, you know, once it does get to the point of disposing of that product, they'll get that reminder, you know, again, sort of another sort of engaging sort of call to action, another chance to win. Don't forget to scan your QR code on sort of disposing of it, because that's a great way of talking to three different people in the world, obviously very loosely, but it's like those that don't care about what they do with their recycling, those that don't really know what they need to do, because it can be very confusing. And obviously there's those that already do, and they're doing those right behaviours. So with this rewards gamification method, we're kind of incentivizing people that previously didn't really care to do those right behaviours and get that reward. The education piece, because people as well don't like to be preached to about what they have to do with their recycling. So again, this makes it a very sort of you know, good way of getting people to understand what they need to do, but in sort of the carrot not the stick approach, as I said, and then rewarding those other people that are already doing those right things, and a brand communicating them right at the point where they're going to need to make a replacement decision. So they're doing simultaneously getting people to put their waste, you know, their products in the right waste stream, which also helps to hit your ESG targets and everything like that, but then as well encouraging repeat purchase. So it's really a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at KFC. So I know this is a case study. Talk to us a little bit about these survey results.
Yeah, so KFC, we're running a partnership with KFC in South Africa, and it's really great to know as well that we didn't really have any presence to speak of in South Africa until we started the campaign with them. So that's where it's really important for brands to work together with us to sort of promote the fact that there is a partnership happening. Obviously, KFC has got a huge audience, so it gained traction really quickly. And they've now rolled out into all of their South Africa stores. I think there's nearly 200, you know, across the whole country. But we started with a bit of a test case for the first 3 months. And what we were looking to do is to see, you know, what the behaviour change of consumers, how it had changed after they started using. So this was based around littering, not so much connected packaging, but still through our app, a similar thing, taking a picture of throwing away litter correctly and getting a reward from KFC. So how people's perceptions or sort of understanding of doing those right things had changed. And also, of course, brand perception for KFC. And and as you can see, we were hoping for around sort of the benchmark was like 50% sort of uplift, and as you can see, sort of in the 70 and 80%. So the behaviour change and the brand perception shot through the roof. Obviously, KFC are really, really happy, and of course, it also means that the rewards that they're offering brings people into store, but also because of the gamification element, obviously brands don't want to be constantly giving away or discounting their products. So what it means is that we work with them on algorithms. So different levels of rewards, or you didn't win this time, try again next time. So it just keeps people's momentum going and keeps them engaged. So yeah, we're all really happy with the KFC campaign, and it's also sorry. No, I was just going to say, it also meant that it means that we're getting sort of, helping to get a lot of traction in South Africa. So sort of, one thing leads on to another, hopefully clearing up the planet as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think is holding back brands? Because that looks like amazing uplift, to be honest. Basically the thoughts around the brand is so much more sustainability, absolutely thinking about getting rid of packaging in the right way. I mean, that's so positive. Why don't you think more brands are just doing this?
Well, yes, it's a good question. We ask ourselves every day. But yeah, I mean, we obviously talk to lots of different, brands globally about lots of different innovations. And I think that that's where it comes in, where there's new tech and new innovations. There, of course, there are some brands who want to be like leading the way with that and sort of, be sort of leaders in a new field. But of course, there also are a lot of brands that want to hold back a little bit and see what the results are from those brands that take those first steps. So there has to be a tipping point where people just go, yeah, let's give it a go. But also as well, it's a case of, we all understand there's budget and time limitations for, every business pretty much. So it is really easy to just go with what they know. And as I say, sort of take a step back and sort of not prioritize. But yeah, I mean, especially with connected packaging, and all of that data-led stuff, it's really important to think outside of the box a little bit and understand what it is that they're getting from that campaign. So I think that's mainly the things that are holding people back at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And also it affects, if you can think about the data that you get, as you say, that gives you kind of that rich key. It's not just about the engagement data, but also, understanding the perception of the brand, potentially understanding that behavior change, but also being able to understand just who's buying your product. If you don't know that, then how much more useful is it for you as a brand to know actually who's buying your product, why they buy your product, what they thought of your product, innovation, this flavour versus that flavour. I think I said earlier this morning, if everybody said they want a watermelon flavour toothpaste, well, that's your next innovation, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's again, it's kind of the win-win really, because it's all of that consumer information that you're gathering. But again, like sustainability is much more front of mind for brands, but also for consumers. And there's tons of data about consumers sort of affiliating themselves with brands that do have that kind of sustainability credentials. So not only again is it important for them to hit certain targets and everything like that, but to understand what people's and consumers' behaviours are around sustainability will shape what they actually are doing with their packaging and all of that side of it as well. So yeah, I mean it's I hope that it's going to be something that sort of eventually people are going to have be unusual not to be doing this kind of thing, but it's a case of being that innovator, I think, and taking a leap into something which could really massively benefit them as a brand.
Yeah, no, absolutely, on so many different levels as well. We've got a comment or a question in. Let me just quickly see from the audience. It's anonymous here, but how many respondents do you need to feel confident in the accuracy of consumer responses? Are there statistical studies to help prove out the KFC campaign?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to say as an industry standard. Do you know, Jenny?
No, I don't think there's any kind of benchmark there. I think that, of course, there's the ability for somebody to lie, whether or not they felt beneficially impacted by it. I'm not sure there'd be much benefit in lying.
To do that, no. I mean, again, I think it depends on loads of things, which is about collaborating in a partnership with various brands and what they're trying to get out of it. yeah, so of course there needs to be a big enough pool. 50% of 2 people isn't going to be telling you very much. But even if that was the case and you did only get a very small amount of people sort of responding, then that still does tell you something about the brand uplift and the fact that people aren't engaging with the survey. So you can look at it that way, that it's still getting data from that. But in terms of the positive data with KFC, I wouldn't be able to say the amount of people that responded, but it's been a very engaging campaign and continues to be. So,
and they've extended the campaign, haven't they?
Yeah, well, they haven't. It was a sort of a 3-month, not trial, but yes, they then extended it out to the rest of the 12 months and extended it out across all of South Africa, which goes hand in hand with the amount of sort of things like budget they're putting behind all of the marketing, and that kind of speaks for itself how well it's been received.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've got plenty of different case studies as well where when the brand has gone back to do a year-on-year comparison, on average we see about 20% increase in sales during the time of the campaign. So I don't think you even need to ask the consumers, how do you feel about this? If there's a 20% increase in sales, especially now, this year versus last year, product materials is all more expensive, inflation, etc. If you can get a 20% increase in sales now, then obviously there is definitely a positive impact there on revenue and loyalty to the brand. But yes, lots of interesting things there. What do you think is the future for connected packaging and data and campaigns?
Really what we've said, but sort of an amplification of that, sort of, it being the normal thing to have, and it being, brands being kind of like out of step if they're not, using that data, or sort of giving people the ability to scan a QR code, because I think a consumer will, when a QR code is done correctly anyway, then consumers will come to expect that on packaging, so that they can get this whole mine of information from their side as well. Because it's not just about the brand getting information on consumers. There has to be a reason for a consumer to scan the QR code in the first place. And obviously that means that the brand has to provide up-to-date relevant information. If it's reward based, they have to be compelling rewards. So it's a two-way thing as to why QR codes are useful, but given that, with the assumption that they are giving that good information to consumers, then, as I say, consumers will come to expect that. Brands will sort of see all of the data that they can get from behind that technology, and as well, as I say, when we're talking about sustainability, the actual difference that it does make, and it's not just a box ticking exercise. For example, from our side, we've had over 15 million pieces of litter and recycling correctly disposed of since we launched over lockdown. So it genuinely does make a difference in terms of engagement and behaviours. And so I think that's what will become the standard, hopefully.
I definitely agree with you. I think we had a lady from Boost, which is a Nestle brand, saying actually the standard will be, and I think you mentioned this earlier as well, that consumers will look actually for where they find the extra information, or if there is a competition. Therefore, the behaviour change will be looking for the QR code.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and people really understanding them as well. Again, it's like any kind of branding or marketing. It's all about the right messaging to the right people at the right time, and a strong call to action. And I think learnings sort of about how to really engage people with QR codes, are really important, and that's what should be hopefully the focus for brands that are especially currently using them.
Definitely. All right, so we're coming to the end. Thank you so much, Gemma. It's been lovely speaking with you. But before you leave us, can you give us your one piece of advice to any brands now who are thinking about implementing something, or wondering what type of data is going to be useful for them? What's your piece of advice to those who are joining us?
I guess just really a summary of what we've been talking about. So be one of the leaders in your field and understand like the bigger picture, and understand what you want to get from the QR codes on your side, repeat purchase, but what data you're looking for from consumers. But also, again, like make your messaging be like engaging and get people to want to actively scan a QR code, because they can sometimes be almost like hidden away or a little bit confusing as to what the purpose is of why it's there. So I think a piece of advice would be start thinking outside of what you do now, and look at a QR code strategy and what that means, but then for it to work, people need to connect with it. So make it be something that shows people why they're doing it, and then when they need to do it, and then when they do sort of scan it, have that good information and make exciting content and everything behind it.
Yeah.
Think of it as a billboard of your product on the packaging.
Yeah, a digital billboard, but just action from your packaging. That's a really great way of thinking about it. Thank you so much, Gemma.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to have you here with us.
Thank you
And
very much.
really, really great to share. Don't go away.
Okay.
We will be joined by Rachel Sheldon and also Andrew Manley. So Rachel from Griner Packaging and Andrew Manley from the AIPIA. We'll be joined in 5 minutes. So do stick around, because we'll be talking about reusability, the next frontier in sustainability, and the role of connected packaging. Thanks, Jem.
Great. Thanks, everyone.